On the show, Jay. Thank you.
Now, you also have Greg Warren. I don't know if your paths have crossed in the world of comedy.
Well, Greg, you and I have never crossed paths, but I did see Jay. I saw your wonderful film with, with the dog,
Marshall's Miracle, and Greg.
Marshall's
that's right.
Miracle. Who was Greg? Greg was in that.
I was assistant coach Larry Jordan. I'm surprised you don't know that.
Well, I remember that assistant coach Larry was the linchpin to the plot.
Yeah, and I don't believe I was nominated for any awards for that thing, which I can't believe.
A little surprising.
I thought so. Yeah.
Well, you were snubbed.
Yeah,
I was. I think there's some political stuff going on between me and the Academy.
It's who you know. It's all relationships, and if you're outside of the loop, it doesn't matter what stellar performance you deliver, as you did.
Well, you know what, Jordan? Thanks for noticing that. I really appreciate you saying that, buddy.
Jordan, your film, I Am Battle Comic, a documentary, yes. But I don't want to let that to dissuade anyone from going and finding this film, because not only does it take on a great topic, which is comedians going over and entertaining the troops, it is very funny. There are moving moments, but it's very funny. Tell us about the film and what gave you the idea. Why'd you do this?
Well, first of all, anybody just interested needs to go to iambattlecomic.com, and you see every link to iTunes, Amazon, Vudu, charity links. There's all kinds of stuff. iambattlecomic.com. I don't even say the www, because I think people know that by now.
I don't. I was confused. I
I'm
tried
not
to
aware
get
of that.
there.
Yeah, because I'm typing I Am Battle Comic right now. Nothing's happening.
That's not good. Here's the deal. About 7 years ago, I made a film called I Am Comic, which looked at the art, craft, and occupational hazards of being a stand-up comedian.
Great film.
And thank you. And it was a documentary with some of your favorites. And no matter what flavor of comedy you liked, it was covered. Like from Carrot Top to Dave Attell, to Louis C.K. and Sarah Silverman, Phyllis Diller, Carlos Mencia. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter.
A good friend of Greg's, Nikki Glaser, in there had a big role.
Yeah, she was great.
We kind of discovered Nikki Glaser in that film. She was new.
Yep.
So then I did I Am Road Comic a few years later, where I examined life on the road. So you do these documentaries, you do two, and then a comedian, Don Barnhart, who's been entertaining the troops for 20-some years, he called me up and said, hey, do you want to go to the Middle East, Afghanistan, Iraq, and parts unknown? And you got to do 15 minutes, and then I can bring you on, and you can document what we do as comedians that do this all the time. So, Jeffrey Ross and David Tell and Louis C.K. did an episode on his show about it. Comedians since Bob Hope, then Robin Williams, Drew Carey, they all go over and entertain the troops, and I thought it would be a great story to tell.
Absolutely, but did you have 15 minutes of material? I know you're a stand-up, but you've been doing films more than comedy.
Oh, I've been in remission from stand-up for 20-some years, so let me say that I was doing a little bit of crowd work. I stretched. I practiced at a couple of open mic nights, but my goal was just to get the crowd from 0 to 25 miles an hour and let the other guys bring the show home. But that's part of the fun, I think, is that I was struggling a bit to get the laughs. But what I found out, talking to the individual men and women that have volunteered to serve and be away from their families for a year, what I learned is it's much more than a show. It's an escape from a reality over there, and I hope the film gives a glimpse. There's some gravitas to it. It's not just all laughs. Like the first two were just fun, disposable entertainment. This documentary, I think, will show you what it's like to serve in the Middle East in our all-volunteer army.
Who went over with you? Who were the comedians?
Slade Ham is from Houston. Jeff Capri, who I've known for quite a bit. Bob Kubota, who I mean, he's been doing it since the 90s. And then Don Barnhart, who founded the Battle Comics and produces a lot of tours and is a comedian himself. Those four guys took me over. And then I came back home and interviewed George Lopez and Dave Attell, Tammy Pascatelli, Sean Halpin, who was a Marine, turned into a comedian. I say turned into. It wasn't like poof magic. I mean, he worked on it and wrote material.
So how long were you there?
About 3 weeks.
That's a long time for a comedian to be in the Middle East. It's a long time for anyone to be in the Middle East. Were you there in the winter, the summer? What were the conditions like?
You know, Jay, I was there in the pre-bombing season because apparently the Taliban, you know, they're up in the mountains. I don't know if they're snowboarding in those long coats they wear and the funny hats, but they wait for everything to thaw out before they come down the mountain and attack. So we had 1 or 2 bomb attacks in Afghanistan. Well, you know, they lobbed some IEDs. Is it IEDs or IUDs? One of them's different.
I think IEDs. I think you were right the first time.
I think that's correct.
Second one's much different thing.
A much different thing.
And you don't want to mix them up, especially the other way.
Yeah.
But I think some of the terrorists did lob IUDs. It was a birth control device, and they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, it was more of a form of protest, actually.
Religious thing.
Yeah, that's a religious stance. Yeah. It's not as threatening.
We also didn't know where we were going to go. Like, there was no itinerary. Only the Armed Forces Entertainment. It was the company that sort of runs it. We had military. I guess they were like contractors, chaperones.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with guns that took us everywhere, and there was a chase vehicle that was 2 feet behind our van everywhere we went. We felt very safe.
Now, there are oftentimes in the movie where you were at is blurred out for security reasons.
Well, I ran the film by the Department of Defense, who said, you know, you really can't identify where you are. So I even mixed some locations with other locations editorially just to confuse. Like, I don't want to be the guy that ISIS rents his movie and then, you know, if they go to IamBattleComic.com or they download it on iTunes, and ISIS is going, oh, look, there's where they stay. This is what they do.
Those Department of Defense guys, that's a good audience.
Yeah,
that's a good audience.
Yeah.
I mean, you had them laughing out loud, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. Not one comment on the material. Like, I expected them to go, hey, you might want to edit yourself out a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think, though, you might be in a little bit of reverse trouble in that you blur out this thing where ISIS thinks, okay, well, they're not in Afghanistan, but they also could be like, you know what, I can see that they're in Cleveland, and now Cleveland's going to take a hit.
That's true.
You know.
Well, it also begs the question, if you're going to put a sign to where you are and then blur it out, why put the sign in there to begin with?
That's a good point. That sounds very military. I spent a very brief time in the military, and that sounds very, very military to me. I noticed several friends that are in the movie, but I noticed Jennifer Rawlings was in there. And
oh my gosh, she's wonderful.
She has that great. I went and watched her one woman show. I think it's "I Only Smoke in War Zones" is the name of it. And,
exactly. Yes, she's taking that around the world.
Yeah, it's a really, really powerful show. Does she talk about that in the movie at all?
She doesn't talk about the documentary, but some of the stories are the same as that show.
Oh, good. Yeah, those are really powerful stories.
So I've known her since we were in our early 20s during the first comedy boom. So here you got by the way, she's super cute.
Yeah, very,
she's
very
a
beautiful.
Mom,
yeah.
A mom of, I think, 3 boys.
5 children.
And
she has a girl, too, I think, yeah.
5 kids. And she still goes to she's been to every continent. And she opened up for Garth Brooks and Lee Greenwood and some other country stars on tours with troops. And she's been in forward operating bases where it's like MASH, you know, a couple of tents and sandbags. You're sleeping on cots. And one story that didn't make the movie, I wish it did. She talked about her son calling her, once we were in the cell phone era, like asking her how to make mac and cheese as she's getting on a C-130 in the Middle East. And she's like, I don't have time for this now. So she was still being a mom from afar.
I mean, it's on the box, actually.
Yeah.
It just for the listeners, it's on the box, the mac and cheese thing.
We're talking to Jordan Brady, filmmaker, comedian, filmmaker, about his newly released film documentary, I Am Battle Comic. Out there, if you go to www.iambattlecomic.com.
I think there's an HTTP in there somewhere too.
/double.
Hey, Jordan, you mentioned the fobs and the cobs. Do you guys do you go to some of those locations? Those sort of I only did it one time, and I mean we performed at a lot of those places, and it was like we stood on a milk crate a couple of times for a stage because it was way off the beaten path.
Yeah, we talk about the fobs a lot, where the further away you get from the base to a unit that's out there, the more they need the distraction, the more they need a little piece of home. And the meet and greets, during the day you go from unit to unit. I thought you just go there, sleep all day, watch cartoons, get high, and do a show. Apparently there's none of that on base.
Yeah, especially in the Middle East. You might want to watch the getting high part.
Yeah. And the cereal choice is lacking.
Yeah.
So you go and you shake hands and you meet the unit, and they take 15 minutes out of their day, and they explain what they do, and they have a lot of pride in what they do. And you learn that, wow, it's, every day is Monday. It's just the same thing. They're always on alert. And it may be long stretches of boredom peppered with, some heavy stuff. So they welcome that distraction. You're getting to know them on a personal basis. I tell people, Jay, that before I went over there, being, this lefty liberal, I just saw the troops as this green blob, and what are we doing over there? And then you go there and you realize they're individual people, that are pieces of this large puzzle. It's, Stan from Cleveland. It's Judy from St. Louis, and the troops have a face to them.
Absolutely,
and they didn't. And you have to leave the politics at home.
They are there doing a job, and it's a difficult job. And regardless of your political beliefs, what they are doing is to be applauded because they're serving this country.
Man, coming from a comedian, and I'm sure Jordan would say the same thing. They are the best audience that you can imagine because they really appreciate you being there, especially when you get in the fobs and the cobs,
which are the far out places.
Yeah, the way out places.
Yeah.
Because you go to the big bases, they're like, yeah, man, we had Chris Rock last week. We really don't care about you, Greg. But you get out there, they don't see anything.
Right, goats.
And the setting is all wrong for comedy. Like you're standing on a milk crate, there's no lighting, and it's just like, I don't know how this is going to work. And then you just
it does
kill.
Right.
They're great people.
Jordan,
and they're sober in the Middle East. They're sober audiences.
Right, you don't get the benefit of a bucket of beer at the table.
But what was amazing is after each show, they line up and shake your hand and want an autograph. And, I wasn't the assistant coach in Miracle Marshall.
No, you weren't, Jordan, okay? There was one, and...
it was assistant coach Larry.
Yeah.
Jordan Brady, filmmaker, comedian, his new film, I Am Battle Comic. We're going to have to go here, take a break, but I want to give you an opportunity. Tell people where to get this film, how do they see it, and it's just released, and they really need to take the time to watch this film.
Jay, thank you for having me on. Here's what I'm going to say. You could go to iTunes, you can go to Amazon, but if you go to iambattlecomic.com, scroll down and look at the link for National Military Family Association, and there's another little button for a charity I love called For Veterans' Sake. They give therapy dogs at no cost to a veteran suffering from PTSD. They will match them with a therapy dog. Either one of those buttons, if you click and buy the movie through those buttons, we donate a significant amount of the proceeds to the charity, depending upon which button you click.
All right.
So I've taken the movie around to like 7 cities. We've sold out, raised $26,000 to date for various charities like National Military Families, Operation Gratitude, where they send care packages to the troops. So I'm very flattered you'd have me on the show, and I just implore people, even if you don't buy the movie, look at some of these great charities helping our military families, because the families pay the price too, with a mom or dad that's away for a year. And just donate to that. But if you buy the movie through those links, you'll be helping a good cause or two.
Thank you very much, Jordan Brady,
Thanks, Jay.
Director,
Bye,
I Am
guys.
Battle Comic at IamBattleComic.com.